Parallel Planets podcast.
Welcome to the Parallel Planets podcast. I'm Kit and I'm here with cryptozoologist Richard Freeman for this episode. Now, Richard, firstly, we need to address the big deal this year. By a strange turn of events, I found myself being on one of the quiz teams at Weird Weekend North this year, and I was on the team that won, and that's why I'm wearing this T-shirt here.
Yes, a fantastic Robert Robinson T-shirt.
Very kindly donated to us as the winning team. That was a fantastic quiz that covered all sorts of areas. There was a couple of things that came up that I hadn't even heard of, but I think I only got one question right because Stu Neville was so knowledgeable. I think I got something about the Wendigo correct or something like that, but luckily Stu was there to carry me and Ruth through the whole process, so that was good. Anyways, on to next year, and hopefully we'll win, and hopefully we'll get an even, shall I say, stranger prize, an even more exotic prize, maybe something like that.
Well, you should have seen some of the prizes in the past. I've got to think.
What have you done before? Go on, I've not been to the event before. What have you given it before?
Oh, good Lord. In the past, we have had Nazi dildo guns.
Fabulous.
What else have we had? We've had mooning gnomes. We've had gift packs of out-of-date dog's medicine that you can lace your friends' drinks with for a laugh.
Wow.
Oh God! Now you ask me. Yodeling pickles.
Yodeling pickles. Goodness me.
Yeah, pickles that yodel. Pictures of the Blessed Virgin Mary in potatoes.
Oh.
All sorts of stuff.
Good. Well, I'm coming next year, so I'm going to do my utmost best to get on one of the teams, purely just because I want to see what prizes you come up with next year. Anyways, I've got some questions for you. So I know what cryptozoology is, and many listeners know what cryptozoology is. But there will be some people who are thinking, well, this is all very well. I know the word zoology, but why is the word crypto in front of it? So I'm going to start off with a really boring, banal question, Richard. You've guessed it. What is cryptozoology, please?
Well, it comes from the Greek word kryptos, meaning hidden. So it's hidden zoology. And it deals with animals that are either unknown to science, such as the yeti, sea serpent, Mongolian death worm, ones that are classed as extinct but may well still be around, like the Tasmanian wolf and the great ivory-billed woodpecker and the Japanese wolf, and also creatures that are known to science but have grown very much bigger than the textbooks say they should, like giant crocodiles, giant anacondas, giant pythons, and so forth.
So that's what I'm interested in. I've always found it quite fascinating how they, in my eyes, and obviously correct me if I'm wrong at any point here, there seems to often be two avenues within cryptozoology, and they are cryptids that are such as, I don't know, like the Jersey Devil or Chupacabra or something like that, that seems to be its own beast or entity or creature. And then there are the cryptids that are animals that were known to exist once but don't exist anymore, but there have been sightings of them, so you go adventuring looking for them. Would I be right in saying there's maybe two different areas there?
Yeah, broadly speaking. Well, the Chupacabra and the Jersey Devil are both mainly media creations.
Okay.
Not very much.
Go on, say a bit more about that then, because I was going to ask you about the Chupacabra later on.
Well, the Chupacabra, it was really something that was pushed by newspapers, and when my friend and colleague Jonathan Downs went over to Puerto Rico to look at these so-called Chupacabra attacks on livestock, and most of the livestock was quite small, like chickens and small goats, and he found that they were mainly being attacked by introduced mongooses. And the so-called lack of blood in them is that in the heat, blood dries up very quickly. And also you get scavengers like ants that will go into the body and then take out the internal organs.
Right.
So the Chupacabra is mostly a media creation. But if you're looking at monsters in general,
Mm.
they fall into two categories. And one of them is true cryptozoology, which is the stuff I mentioned earlier on. Flesh and blood animals that are either unknown to science, survivals of species thought to be extinct, or very large individuals known species. That's true cryptozoology. Then you get something much stranger. You get the sort of, for want of a better word, paranormal monsters. These include modern day sightings of dragons, which are surprisingly common, and things like the Owlman of Morland Smith in Cornwall,
Classic.
Mothman,
Yeah.
creatures like that make no biological sense, couldn't exist in the environments that they're reported in, and often reported alongside other Fortean phenomenon like poltergeist outbreaks, weird lights, UFO sightings, and other things like that.
So it's often or in those cases it's sometimes the case that you get a flurry of different incidents and phenomena all happening at the same time that are not all cryptozoological, not all paranormal, but they're a mixture of things in the same area.
Yeah, it's called a Fortean flat, and areas that have high instances of weird, high strangeness, they're called window areas. John Keel, the famous investigator John Keel, came up with the idea of window areas, like Point Pleasant and
that's the Mothman, wasn't it? Point Pleasant, Virginia, West Virginia.
Warminster in the 60s, and it looks like Waverley Abbey, the area around Waverley Abbey in Surrey, is becoming a new window area, one that's just opening up.
So this was covered at the end of Weird Weekend North, wasn't it? You were talking with I forget the lady's name. Sorry. Yes, beg your pardon. About the Waverley Dragon sighting at the end. Yes, and that's becoming a bit more of a window area around there in general, is it?
Yes, other things are seen there. Well, on the night that there was the mass witness dragon sighting, they also saw weird lights in the sky, heard what sounded like children chanting where there should be no children. They had poltergeist activity after using a Ouija board.
Oh goodness! Right, okay.
So it's a very high concentration of high strangeness. And, I think it's likely to be ongoing. We will be carrying on with an ongoing investigation.
Good. Have you? So you're going back there to carry on looking around and investigating and seeing what's going on?
Yeah, and
good.
Talking to some more of the witnesses. There were 10 witnesses.
There were 10? Goodness me, I forgot. I thought there was only a couple. Blimey, there were 10.
No, there were 10. I've spoken to 5 of them.
Yeah.
And I was very impressed by their lack of exaggeration. They just told me what they saw. One guy didn't get a good look. He said, I just saw these two shapes and I saw that they had huge bat-like wings. But he didn't try and embellish at all.
Well, I should just say this is Waverley Abbey, just outside Farnham, isn't it, in Surrey?
Yeah.
There's a mass sighting of what 10 people believe to be was a dragon at Waverley Abbey.
3 of them. 3. A large one with a huge
3 dragons, right.
And 2 smaller ones.
Right.
I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that there's an undiscovered species of giant flying lizard living in Britain. Undetected. A paranormal manifestation, and it most likely is the most ancient of all paranormal manifestations because dragon legends go back at least 75,000 years, and they're found in every culture on Earth.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, I remember there was a lot of toing and froing. I remember when you were doing that talk, what I found quite interesting was we'd sat there all weekend, and there was talks about lake monsters. There was talks of classics like Sandown, the Sandown clown. There was talks about what else happened? I can't remember. The cryptids in Iceland, etc., etc. And there was a chap about halfway back from me who'd sat there through all that all weekend, but then he couldn't handle the dragon story at the end, and he started kicking off and saying, "This is absolute nonsense. I can't handle it." And he sat through everything else happily, and then couldn't deal with the dragons at the end, which I thought was quite strange. But as you say, 75,000 years of dragon stories in every culture around the world. So actually, I'd say that there's probably more gravity to that than even some of the other stuff.
Yeah, it's because we're taught from when we're little that dragons only exist in folklore and fairy tale.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, and there was always that. I was always told at school that people believed that they found dinosaur fossils, and then because they didn't have the brains back then to think it through, they decided they'd come up with dragons instead, or something like that. Is what they told. I think they teach kids on the national curriculum now. But when you're an adult, you can make your own decisions and work it out for yourself, can't you?
Well, dinosaur bones would have added to the legends of dragons, but they don't explain people seeing and interacting with dragons. And in all cultures, you've got stories from ancient China to Britain, records like
go on, give me some examples.
Like the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle, which is a chronicle of historical events, and they report dragons seen flying over Lindisfarne, and they're not comets or meteors or things like that, because they're spoken of totally differently.
Goodness me!
And in ancient books in China, like the summer and autumn classics, that they speak of dragons appearing, and they're looked on as just another natural phenomenon, another part of the world.
Right. So, am I right in saying that in a lot of Chinese culture, that it's just sort of commonly accepted that dragons just do exist?
In former times, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But even today, there are sightings of dragons in China.
Right.
There are, particularly in lakes. There was I think it was 2007. There was a mass sighting by a load of tourists and some soldiers. They were up on a mountainside that saw a dragon leap out of a lake, and they described it as being this great elongate black creature with a horse-like head and horns.
Wow. Actually, I think I remember that. I think I remember reading about it in Forgotten Times. Yeah. What was it that got you interested in this sort of subject in the first place? Was it a childhood built on strange but true and things like that, or was it a fascination?
I'm flattered you think that I was a child when Strange but True was
it was in April when I met you, Richard, and it's a bit blurry, the image now. So there you go.
No, I can answer that question in 3 words: classic Doctor Who.
Oh, right, okay.
While I was growing up as a kid in the 1970s, it was John Pertwee who was the Doctor, and then Tom Baker, and it was very dark, very Lovecraftian, very scary, and at least as much about horror as it was about science fiction. And a lot of the stories were set on Earth, so you had things like giant, deadly maggots crawling out of slag heaps in Wales, and intelligent marine reptiles that have woken up from millions of years hibernation and want to wipe out this upstart ape that's taken their planet, and horrible tentacled aliens that project their minds across space, and they can possess anything plastic and bring it to life. Giant rats in Victorian sewers gnawing people's legs off. It was a million miles away from the fake woke rubbish that we've suffered in the last 7 years, where the BBC are more interested in ticking boxes than they are about telling a good story. They turn the Doctor into a woman when we know Time Lords can't change sex.
Yeah, right.
It was just shoehorned in, and then they made him gay when the Doctor has no sexuality. He's like Sherlock Holmes. He doesn't have a sexuality.
Right. Yeah,
he's an alien, so he wouldn't be interested in human beings anyway. The Doctor doesn't wear a dress and run around kissing men and bursting into tears. And when they turned him into a woman, they lost 60% of their viewers. Then they doubled down and made him gay, and then they lost the rest of it. And they're more interested, rather than making money and satisfying their employees, the license fee paying public, they're more interested in woke bandstanding and saying, "Oh, look at how progressive we are," and that is why the show has been cancelled, and that is why millions of people are turning away from the BBC.
I agree with you.
Their disgusting biased news and their support of a pack of genocidal maniacs in Israel.
Right, goodness. So when I saw you at Weird Weekend, you did a talk about the Caspian tiger. And you've been out there a couple of times. Is it Tajikistan?
3 times now.
Three times.
The Caspian tiger was a subspecies of tiger that lived in Central Asia.
Yeah.
And it went from Turkey all the way through to Central Asia to the borders of Russia. It was supposed to have disappeared around about 1970 due to habitat loss and hunting. But we went over there and we talked to people that had seen it, including a park ranger that had seen one at a distance of only 100 feet, exactly a month before we were there.
Wow.
We talked to hunters that had shot wild goats and had the tiger to steal their kill. We talked to honey farmers, because there are loads of honey farmers in Tajikistan. It's a very big industry there, and they had their hides up in the mountains. They'd seen them. We talked to imams at a mosque that had seen them and known people that had seen them. Farmers that had livestock taken, and they were adamant these weren't leopards or snow leopards, they were tigers. And every time we've been there, we've had so many people that have seen them. And the last time we were there, we went right up to the end of the valley, and whilst we were in the valley, 2 hours further down the valley, a farmer that we talked to, and we talked to him on the way back, said that he woke up in the night with all his dogs going mental, and he came outside of his tent and he found that they were all around the bottom of a tree, and he shone his torch up into the tree, and there was a tiger in the tree. So he called his dogs off, and the tiger ran down and ran off.
Wow. Goodness me. And that was 2 hours down the valley. What a shame. It's so close.
Yeah. We'd gone too far. We wanted to go to a bit of the valley that was very undisturbed, so we went to the very end of it, and it was full of bloody soldiers doing exercises.
Yeah.
And there was very little wildlife there, so we didn't see much. But on the way back, we talked to this guy who was in a more wooded area, and he had seen one, whilst we were there.
Wow. Did you find the people nice? I've been to Uzbekistan, and I find the people of Central Asia very hospitable.
Yes, they were the most hospitable people I've ever met.
Yeah, good. Yeah.
They invite you into their house and talk to you, and I found they're mad on egg and chips for some reason.
Oh, really?
They'll cook egg and chips, yeah. And they always give you goblets of honey and sweets and cakes first, and then the savoury afterwards.
Oh, okay. Goodness me, I'm not sure my body could acclimatise to that after all these years of savoury and then dessert. Goodness me. I did find it. Obviously, I'm not saying they're the same country. They're quite distinct countries, Tajikistan and Uzbekistan. But yeah, there was a lot of eggs eaten in Uzbekistan as well. I was there. But yeah, lovely bunch. So will you be going back out there at some point?
Yes,
to have another look?
At some point we will be going back out there, yeah.
You've also, in the past, am I right in saying you've been to Mongolia? Is that right?
Yes, well, I've been all over the place, but Mongolia is probably my favourite of the places I've been.
Go on, tell us about that then.
Looking for a creature called the Mongolian Death Worm, or as the nomads of Mongolia call it, the Alroy hoi hoi, the intestine worm. They say it looks like a great length of cow's intestine, and it comes up out of the Gobi after rain. And we travelled for about 1,000 miles through the Gobi and talked to about 24 witnesses, the oldest of which was a guy in his 90s that had seen it when he was a kid. And he had been tending to his family's goats and camels, and he saw this thing in the desert and went and told his mum and dad, and they rounded up their livestock, packed up their gur, which is the circular tents they have, and moved out of the area. A death worm sighting can throw a whole area into a panic. And we talked to a young guy who'd seen one just the year before. And all of these people were describing something that's shaped like a draft excluder or a salami, about as long as your arm, scaly, reddy brown in colour, and it's hard to tell the tail from the head. Mostly they were seen just basking in the desert. We talked to an old retired army colonel who'd seen one in the 1970s when he was doing a patrol on his bike one morning on his motorbike. And on a couple of occasions we talked to people who'd seen them slithering out of holes in the desert. One guy said he saw one kill and eat a mouse.
Wow.
One guy said back in the 70s, some Russians had killed one by hurling a rock at it, and they were from a museum, and they took it away as a specimen. So this is probably in some museum in Russia, in a jar somewhere, forgotten in a basement.
Yeah.
But it seems to be, rather than a worm, it seems to be some sort of burrowing reptile. So it may be an amphisbaena or worm lizard. These are weird sausage-shaped burrowing reptiles that aren't snakes or lizards, but are related to both of them. But it's an unknown species. It's bigger than any of the ones we know about. Or it could be a sand boa. Sand boas are chunky, constricting snakes that are generally a couple of feet long, completely harmless, live in the desert. But once again, it's a different colour to the known species, and it's bigger and thicker. So if it is a sand boa, it's not a known sand boa.
Wow. So
But
I'd
love to go back again.
Yeah. So where else have you been in your life looking for on adventures, looking for things as a cryptozoologist? What sort of stands out for you after those two? Tasmania, yeah. Looking for the
Tasmanian wolf.
Right.
Thylacine, yeah.
Oh, Thylacine, yeah.
Flesh-eating marsupial that, due to convergent evolution, looks like a wolf or a dog with stripes along its hindquarters and a long, stiff kangaroo-like tail. But it's a marsupial.
Yes.
Related to the things like the fat-tailed dunart and the Tasmanian devil. It was supposed to have been hunted into extinction in the 1930s. The last one dying in Bumeris Zoo in Hobart in, I think, 1937.
Yes, I've seen the video,
Yeah, since then it's been seen 4,000 times, including by a park ranger.
Wow.
And by a zoologist, Hans Narding, who had a good view of them from about 25 feet away.
Wow.
So we've been over there 5 times now, and the west of the island is just wilderness. Tasmania is about as big as Ireland, but it's got less than 500,000 people living on it, mostly in Hobart and Launceston. And when you get over to the west of the island, there is just huge chunks of wilderness. There are got places like as big or bigger than the southwest of England where nobody lives. It's just forest and wilderness. And we talked to one guy was employed by the government to go out and shoot feral cats, which are a bloody menace wherever they get established, because they will wipe out birds and small mammals. For example, on Stevenson's Island, a single cat that was brought there by the lighthouse keeper in the 19th century wiped out the Stevenson's Island wren, which was a tiny little flightless wren that lived on the island.
Oh, what, a wren did you say?
Wren, a tiny little flightless
wren. Little bird, yeah.
Lived on this island in New Zealand called Stevenson's Island. One cat decimated the whole population. So cats are a bloody menace wherever they get established. And this guy goes out and shoots feral cats. And he'd seen the Tasmanian wolf twice in remote parts of the bush. We talked to another guy who owned an arboretum, a tree place, as the Simpsons called it, tree place. And he had seen one with his wife. He was driving between Launceston and Hobart, and he saw one running along the side of the road trying to get under a barbed wire fence. And behind him, another car stopped full of people, and they saw it. And later there was a news item about it. So he thinks that the people in the car behind him must have reported it to the newspapers. Another guy we spoke to worked in a hydroelectric plant in the 70s, and driving to work, him and 5 other people saw one of these things crossing the road in front of them. A lot of the sightings are when at night when they cross the road in front of cars. But I've got no doubt that they're still out there. I mean,
well, 4,000 sightings since 1936 or whatever year it was is just, that's pretty large amount, isn't it?
Yeah. We have testimony from old hunters back in the 19th century and early 20th century who caught them for zoos. And they say that they smelled like hyenas, because a lot of these guys were in the Boer War in South Africa. And they said they smelled just like hyenas. And I used to be a zookeeper.
Yeah.
I worked at Flycroft Zoo where the PG chimps came from. I worked mainly with reptiles, but I've worked with all sorts of animals over the years in different places. I know what a hyena smells like.
Yeah.
And I was out in a remote area in Tasmania along a trail through the forest, and I got a smell exactly like the smell of a hyena.
Oh,
Just
wow.
like the animal had passed minutes before and left the scent behind it, and the scent faded eventually. But I got that whiff. It was like a hyena. Was that a Tasmanian wolf? I don't know.
Wow, yeah, well, that's the thing, isn't it? When you've got this more experience than some others, having been a zookeeper, to link that up with the cryptozoology study and the thylacine, etc., that's amazing that you had that opportunity to and knew that smell of that animal, you know. So did you go straight into zoology from as a teenager, sort of thing, and then grow into
I
cryptozoology from there?
I became a zookeeper initially
Right.
at Twycross Zoo. I went straight from school
Sorry, yeah, you
to
said, yeah.
doing a youth training scheme. And then I took over running the reptile house
Mm,
for a while. But the two old women, long since dead now, Molly Badham and Natalie Evans, that ran
yeah.
the zoo, not only were they incredibly incompetent and knew nothing about animals, but they were, particularly Molly Badham, not so much Natalie Evans. Molly Badham was one of the worst examples of humanity I've ever met.
Oh,
She was
okay.
one of the most spiteful, petty, nasty people
Oh, goodness
I've
me, okay.
ever come across. And whilst I was there, I saw 30 people just tell her where to stick her job and leave. And in the end,
Oh,
I became one of them.
right, okay. Goodness.
So, and then later, I joined the Centre for Fortean Zoology
Yeah,
after picking up their magazine, Animals and Men,
yeah.
and subscribing to it. I was living in Leeds at the time, studying zoology at Leeds University. They said, come down, work with us, be our zoological director. So I did. And from that day on, I've been all around the world looking for all sorts of strange creatures and having all kinds of adventures.
Give me another place you've been, and then another
Sumatra.
cryptid. Sumatra, and what were you looking for there?
I've been down to Sumatra 6 times now,
Wow, there's
searching
plenty
for
going
the
on down there, isn't there? I remember reading
yeah,
some stuff you've put in 14 times about that, yeah.
searching for the Orang Pendek,
Oh, yeah,
which
classic,
in
yeah.
Malay means the short man. And
Yeah.
it is a upright walking ape that's supposed to live in the jungles of Sumatra, about 3 to 5 feet tall, very robustly built, long hair, and I've seen its footprints and its handprints, which are different to orangutan, and I've cast them. We've found hair that has been analysed by Lars Thomas, who is a Danish expert in animal hair, and he said that the scale arrangement and the internal structure of the hair shows that it's an unknown primate related
Wow.
to orangutans, but not an orangutan.
Yeah.
Not the Sumatran orangutan, it's something related to it but different. I've heard it calling every single time I've been there.
Wow.
One of my colleagues, Dave Archer, actually saw it on his first expedition, first day in the jungle. He saw this thing squatting in a tree trying to hide, and when it realised it had been spotted, it clambered down out of the tree and walked away on 2 legs. So
Wow.
after the Tasmanian wolf, I'd say this is the cryptid most likely to exist as a flesh and blood creature. And it seems to be a new type of ground dwelling orangutan. It's, rather than being arboreal, living in the trees, it lives on the forest floor. And as recently as 2017, a new orangutan was identified, the Tapanuli orangutan, identified in 2017. So
Yeah.
there's the Bornean orangutan, the Sumatran orangutan, and the Tapanuli orangutan. So we think that the Orang Pendek is a radically different type of orangutan that lives on the forest floor.
So that leads that was going to be my next question. Of all these cryptids, which do you think is possibly the most likely to exist? And you would suggest Orang Pendek, would you?
Orang Pendek and the Tasmanian wolf.
Yes. So what's next then? Where have you got lined up? Anything on the horizon apart from
Yeah,
Waverley Abbey, obviously?
we're looking at places at the minute. We were looking to go to Iriomote Island, which is off the southern coast of Japan, where
Right.
there's supposed to be a new species of wildcat undiscovered. But
Oh,
it looks way too expensive to go there at the moment. So it may be a future project, I hope. We're looking into going to Flores
yeah,
in Indonesia to look for surviving examples of Homo floresiensis. You know, the little hobbit people that were
yeah,
discovered
yeah.
uh, from the subfossil remains. Well, the anthropologist Gregory Forth says he's spoken to loads of people on the eastern tip of the island that say they've seen living ones. So we're looking at pricing up at the minute how much that's going to cost.
Yeah.
A possible return to Tasmania. It's all down to finance at the end of the day. What I wish I could do is get a well-financed television series that would pay for this and make a documentary series where we go around the world looking for these things, because most cryptozoological series are, to be blunt, fake nonsense, where you get a bunch of hillbillies running around the woods and building Scooby-Doo style traps for Bigfoot and not catching anything. What we need is a serious science-based series about cryptozoology where we go out and look for these things properly. The television in general has got more and more infantile and more obsessed with childish notions, and rather than anything solid. It's very ephemeral. It's more about the thrill of stuff rather than a scientific look at something. If you look at any of these cryptozoological documentaries, in inverted commas, that are on things like Netflix and Blaze and stuff, it's all sensationalism. There's no hard science. We need sort of a David Attenborough style look at cryptozoology. And that's what I'd like to do. I'd like to have a multi-part series where we spend a decent amount of time in the field looking for these things. When they first tried to film the snow leopard back in the 1970s, we already knew it existed, but no one had filmed it in the wild. It took 6 or 7 years to find it in the wild and film it.
So you wanted to see that sort of more David Attenborough approach to cryptozoology, as opposed to what does
mountain monsters and nonsense like that.
And you've got things where the presenter will be walking through the woods, and then suddenly he goes, "Oh, what's that noise?" And then suddenly it cuts to an ad break, and then you come back and it's just his producer walking out the woods or something. Oh, it's you, stuff like that. Does my head in.
Yeah, we need to go to these places, spend several months there, and make proper documentaries.
Yeah. Why do you think production companies aren't looking at that? What do you think
because
it is?
They just want sensationalism.
Right. Yeah.
They just want. Oh, look at this! Look, will they find the monster? Oh, ad break.
Yeah, they just want the views and stuff, don't they?
They're incredibly annoying and childish, and I once had the BBC contacted me once, years ago, and they wanted to come along on an expedition, film us, and get a documentary out of it, but not pay us anything. Then an American guy wanted to come along, and he said, we've got a guarantee that we'd find the animal, we'd find the creature.
Oh.
So, how can I do that? I can't just flick my fingers and it'll come out of the jungle with a little ukulele doing the George Formby impression.
Yeah.
It's utterly ridiculous. Another time, what was her name? Jonathan Ross's wife. What's her name?
Silver. Silver? Something Silver?
No, her name was Golding. Is it
Golden,
Golding.
Yeah.
I can't remember her first name. Gorgeous looking woman.
Yeah.
She had done a series on 14 subjects like ghosts and premonitions and stuff. And we were rang up by the researcher, and they said, Jane Golding.
Jane Goldman. Jane Goldman, yeah.
And they said they wanted a more science-based one, and they wanted to do cryptozoology, but they hadn't got a big budget, so it had to be Britain or Europe. And I said, well, you can do something easily with lake monsters. you could go to one of the lakes that's supposed to have a monster in it. They're almost certainly huge sterile eels in most cases. So what you do, you get a buoy, and underneath the buoy you have a sack full of a sack of permeable material like hessian or burlap. You fill it with offal, dried blood, fish oil, because eels have an excellent sense of smell. And if something comes and grabs a hold of this sack and pulls so hard that the buoy is dragged underwater, you'll know there's something in that lake that shouldn't be there, that's too big. And this researcher said, this is great, it's a brilliant idea, oh my, fantastic television. I'll be back to you within 2 weeks. And he got back to us and said, the producers don't want to do it because it's too real. It's not about guardian angels or
God's
alien abduction. What natural history. That's the kind of shit we have to deal with.
Yeah.
Because people in charge of television these days are idiots.
Right.
When they're not being woke morons, they're thinking that nobody in the audience has an IQ above 50. And they want childish, sensational rubbish instead of good, hard documentaries. I mean, apart from David Attenborough and the ilk of that, what on television is in natural history is any good anymore? What in documentaries in general?
Yeah, I don't watch a lot, to be honest.
I stopped watching television back in 2017, terrestrial television, and I've never looked back.
Yeah,
but there's room for it, and I think the public would like it, and it would garner a big audience. But I've been trying to do this for the better part of 30 years, and it's like banging your head against a brick wall.
Yeah, it's typical of what consumers are like, or what producers are like in aiming their shows at consumers now, aren't they? It's like a lot of them assume that people want lowest common denominator crap.
I've been trying to impress people for 30 years, and it's like banging your head against a brick wall. It really is.
But most people are not as stupid as some people think they are. This is the problem, and I've said a similar thing to you for a long time. If there was an in-depth documentary about this sort of thing that's not done in such a kind of sensationalist way, that it would be a big hit.
I did do one a few years ago with a really cool French filmmaker called Christopher Killian.
Right.
And it's on Amazon Prime, and it's called on the Yeti Trail. But it's more about Orang Pendek.
Okay.
Than it is about the Yeti.
I didn't know that.
And I went over to Sumatra with him. And,
I've made a note of that.
Yeah, and we made a really good documentary. He filmed some stuff in Canada as well with a guy that was faking Bigfoot stuff. But
right.
In Sumatra, we found loads of tracks and handprints, and we heard it calling. And he came away completely convinced that Orang Pendek was real. And that made quite a good documentary. And they talked to people in natural history museums and scientists as well, who thought this thing was real. So that was a great, but that was a one-off, and it was really well done. But a few years later, it's actually between the lockdowns, I got involved with a company that was making a film about the Russian wild man, the Almasty. And I've been over to Russia twice.
Yeah.
And spoke with people that have seen this thing, including an archaeologist and a biologist that have seen it close up, and members of the public who live in the wilds who have seen it. And I think I came very close to seeing it as well.
Oh.
They said, we're not going out to Russia because of the lockdown, but we're filming it in some caves in Dorset, and we want to talk to you about your experiences and historical cases where the Russian military have met the Almasty. And this bloke said they'd got a huge budget. They'd spent, I think, £50,000 on an Almasty costume and got a 7-foot actor to play it.
Wow, okay.
All this is going to be really good. And they paid me well for a day's work.
Yeah.
They got me by taxi from Exeter to Dorset, there and back, and fed me well. And they took me into these caves. It was where they filmed the Doctor Who story, Destiny of the Daleks.
Oh, yeah.
79. And I thought this is going to be a great show. And they must have used about 3 minutes of what they
Ah,
filmed with me. They didn't use any of my stuff about my own experiences, and precious little about me talking about the cases of the Russian military and the Almaty. It was all about the Dyatlov Pass,
I was going to say, did they feed into that? Because that's quite a
which has
popular story,
nothing
isn't
to
it?
do with the Almaty.
Yeah.
And their thing was they got some American nut on it, and they concentrated on him because he was talking garbage, sensationalist garbage. It was all about genetically engineered yetis
Oh, right.
that used infrasound to cause the avalanche and drive the people mad. And it was embarrassing garbage, and I was mortified to have had anything to do with it. Now, if they'd have concentrated on real sightings of the Almasty,
Mm,
because the Soviet Union took it so seriously, they had a commission to look for it in the 50s.
mm.
If they'd have concentrated on that and spoke to witnesses and used my own stuff, it would have been a great documentary. But no, they had to go around the lowest common denominator, stupid, childish, most idiot theory.
There was a bit of a trend around that time. The Dyatlov Pass incident became quite popular again for a while, didn't it? It was, I think
Yeah,
it was in the press again for a while because there'd been some hearing or something, another investigation. So I guess they just segued into that when it's actually a completely different setup and different case
it's when
to
you
the
look at
Amazon.
it, it's a slab avalanche hitting them, and
Yeah,
then them going mad with hypothermia when they
yeah,
feel
yeah,
hot, when they're really freezing to death and taking their
yeah,
clothes off. Then after they're dead, they're scavenged by animals.
yeah. Exactly, that's what it seems to me. Yeah, and I think that's what quite a lot of people say. But the original investigation said something about an unknown event took place or something, didn't it?
Well, they didn't
But
they didn't realise what slab avalanches were back then.
mm. And I guess maybe they didn't there weren't so many there wasn't such a strong knowledge of hypothermia and
Mm.
paradoxical reactions to hypothermia as well. Anyone who's listening now who doesn't know what the Dyatlov Pass incident is, look it up. I'm not going to explain it now, but yeah, it's a popular one. Um, Before we round up, Richard, I thought if it's all right with you, I'd just give you the names of a few different cryptids, and you just give me maybe your brief opinion on each one. Is that all right with you?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we've done Chupacabra, so we won't do that one again. I've got the Owl Man of Mornon
I
here.
know one of the witnesses.
Okay, tell me more.
Yeah, one of the witnesses who was um, Gavin,
Yeah.
who saw it when he was a 14-year-old boy with his girlfriend. Precocious bastard having a girlfriend at 14. Um, uh, he was on holiday with his girlfriend. He saw it in a tree one night,
Hmm.
terrified him.
Yeah.
It definitely wasn't an eagle owl. It was this bizarre demonic entity. Um, Badly frightened him. He's still frightened of it today.
Yeah.
And he's about 50 now. Um, he said that both him and his girlfriend, he felt that it had somehow pursued them from Cornwall back to their home in the southeast of England.
Oh
And
my
him
word.
and his girlfriend saw it again in the woods around their houses.
Oh
When they
my
were going
God.
to school and stuff, and he was having nightmares about it for years afterwards. He now is a very, very well respected, borderline famous scientist.
Oh wow. Okay.
And he's worked with all kinds of film companies and stuff, and he's attached to a university. So obviously, he doesn't want his name getting out attached with
Yeah.
this thing. That is one of the supernatural entities. It's not a true cryptid. There's not a species of giant owl living in a wood in Cornwall. It's
Hmm.
a paranormal manifestation in the same way that dragons are.
Yeah. Yeah. It was said that it wasn't it in inhabited the area around the church in Mornon, didn't
More than
it?
old church. Yeah.
Yeah, in Cornwall. Yeah. Okay. All right. Thanks for that. I've got the skunk ape.
Probably a subspecies of Sasquatch.
Yeah. This is more
Yes.
down towards the Everglades, isn't it? Down that
Yes.
way, isn't it? Yeah.
So it's slightly smaller than the Sasquatch, but you generally find mammals in cold climates are bigger than ones in hot climates. Now today, all the big mammals, rhinos, elephants, hippos, giraffes, live in hot climates. But
Hmm.
historically, there were things like mammoths, woolly rhinos, mastodons, giant sloths, and stuff living in the cold climates. But we hunted them all into extinction. But
Hmm.
generally speaking, mammals get bigger in cold climates to help retain heat. So the skunk ape may be a subspecies, smaller subspecies of Sasquatch.
Interestingly, on a side note there, you're talking about mammals, generally speaking, getting larger in cold climates. I was reading this morning actually about the remains of pygmy elephants that were found around the Mediterranean,
Yeah,
and how some experts are led to believe that that's how the idea of a cyclops first
from the
came along,
skull,
because the
because
trunk,
the
yeah,
attachment for the trunk looks like a big eye socket. Yeah.
yeah,
Well, on islands, the islands have weird effects on things. Big animals get small because there's less resources for them, so it pays to have a smaller body. So you get pygmy elephants and things. And Homo floresiensis was small because
yeah.
it was on an island. And small animals get big, so you get the giant tortoises in Galapagos and Aldabra and the Komodo dragon and things like that.
Wow,
There
isn't that
was on one of the
interesting?
Mediterranean islands there was a giant rabbit.
Say that again. Sorry, is a giant rabbit where?
Giant rabbit on Mallorca once, about 5 million years ago.
Wow.
About the
Giant.
size of
How big we talking? Giant wise? How
about the
big?
size of a large dog.
Goodness me.
But instead of hopping, it walked.
Oh wow. Blimey. Wouldn't want to bite from that, would you?
Yeah.
Right, I've got Mukele Umbembe.
Probably mostly folkloric.
Yeah. This is in
When
the
you look,
Congo basin, isn't
yeah,
it? Around
yeah.
there, yeah, yeah.
Well, we know that sauropod dinosaurs lived on dry land. They didn't live in water. They live on dry land like elephants or giraffe.
Hmm.
This thing lives; it's supposed to live in water. And when you look at it, there's a lot of folklore attributed to it. I think it could be a mixture of people seeing very large pythons raising their necks out of the water,
Oh
and some of
yeah.
the big soft-shelled turtles that have these domed, leathery backs and long necks.
Hmm.
And there could be a very big one of those seen from a distance. Adds to the folklore of Makeli and Bembe. But there are stories of giant crocodiles from that area, which are much more believable.
Oh, okay. Tell me more about giant crocodiles.
Well, they have a tradition of this massive crocodile there.
Okay.
They say it grows to 50 feet long, which
Wow.
I think 30 feet is probably more like the, the
Still enough feet though, isn't it? Blimey.
an
Size of that
average
thing.
an average sized crocodile can kill a lion or a water buffalo. So uh,
Yeah.
this thing would be terrifying. One of my
Uh,
interests is giant crocodiles all over the world, and at the minute I'm in conversation with the French guy that I mentioned earlier,
yeah.
and the company he works for to do a series where we go all through Africa, Asia, and Australasia, looking at these reports of giant crocodiles. Sometimes the native people worship them as deities, sometimes they're feared man-eaters, but they have this mystique about them, these giant individuals. So we're going to try and get some of them on film. So I'm hoping that gets off the ground.
Yeah, definitely. What, so you're going to go to Asia? We're going to look at gharials and in
Mainly the
Asia and
saltwater crocodile in
saltwater. They're biggest,
Asia
aren't
and
they? Yeah.
Australia, yeah, and the Nile crocodile in Africa. If it gets off the ground, which I'm knocking on wood for.
Yeah, same here. That sounds brilliant. Yeah, yeah. Right, a couple more. Absolute stone cold classic. Loch Ness Monster.
Mostly explicable by natural phenomenon and witness expectation. Because you go to Loch Ness, even if you don't believe in the monster, it's there in the back of your mind.
Hmm.
So if you see a standing wave or a boat wake, it becomes the monster's hump. So if you see a seal, and we know that seals get into Loch Ness, it becomes the monster. And because of it's very deep and it's V-shaped Loch Ness. So
Yes.
if a boat's wake hits the shore, it can bounce back and be visible going across the lake. Um, up to half an hour after the boat's gone. But there are other lakes like Loch Morra which don't have that tourist sensation in them, and they still have monster reports. And in both Loch Ness and Loch Morra, and most of these other deep northern hemisphere lakes where these things are reported from, I think we're dealing with gigantic eels.
Dealing with what, sorry?
Gigantic eels.
Oh, eels, yeah. Isn't
Well,
there, am I right? I've got in the back of my mind there's a huge lake in Sweden, is there?
but
That's
several in Sweden that have these
yeah.
things as well. Now, the European eel lives in fresh water. When it gets ready to breed, it goes out into the sea, to the Sargasso Sea, and they breed and then die. And the baby eels, the elvers has left the building.
Very good.
They swim back to the ancestral waters to grow into adult eels, and the cycle goes around again. But every now and again, you get one that doesn't sexually develop, because for most of their lives, they don't have sex organs. Sigmund Freud studied biology before he studied psychology, and he dissected loads of eels and didn't find any genitals in them.
Oh,
to understand it.
Yeah.
But something, we're not sure yet, triggers them to grow genitals, and then they go out into the sea and breed. But every now and again, you get something called a eunuch eel, which is an eel that doesn't sexually develop, and they stay in fresh water. Nobody knows how big they can get or how old they can grow. 2004, an eel seen by Canadian tourists in the shallows in Loch Ness was said to be 25 feet long. And in a lot of the Irish lochs, they call these monsters horse eels, and the description is of huge eels. There was one place called Drewston House, which is now a missionary training centre, but it used to be owned by a family called the McVeighs. And in the early part of the 20th century, a guy called Major McVeigh had come home from India on holiday back to his home, and the gamekeeper had poisoned two feral dogs that had been killing sheep, and he'd left them out by a lake in the grounds of Drewston House. And there was rumours about monsters in these lakes. In the morning, he found the dogs had been eaten, and two huge eels were there that had been poisoned by eating the poisoned dog flesh. And one was 12 feet long and one was 10 feet long. And they're supposed to have photographed them and the steps running up to Drewston House, which has got pillars on it. And they were draped along these steps with the staff to show how big they were. And Major McVeigh was still showing this photo to people in the 1950s.
Right.
Apparently, the family emigrated to Australia. I've been trying to get hold of this photograph and track it down to no avail whatsoever.
Right.
But probably somewhere in some photo album, there's this really important piece of cryptozoological evidence.
Yeah, absolutely. Blimey. So, oh, wow. Well, that'd be brilliant if you get hold of it one day. Finally, the moa.
The moa was a real bird. There were several species. We know that they existed. We have their bones. And on Madagascar, there was a very similar giant ratite called the Madagascar elephant bird, which was even heavier. The moa was taller, the elephant bird was heavier and chunkier.
Yeah.
They disappeared through human hunting. They were
Yeah.
wiped out by human hunting in the same way that the dodo was. So it's unlikely that there are any moas left. Very unlikely.
There's that blurry photo of what a lot say is that is a deer looking over its shoulder, isn't there?
Yeah.
From when was that from? The 50s or something?
Yeah. Well,
in New
deer
Zealand.
and moose were introduced to New Zealand.
Right. But someone said it was a surviving moa, and I'm not convinced. It doesn't look particularly.
I'd love to be proven wrong, but there just aren't decent sightings of them. With the Tasmanian wolf, you get loads of sightings every year. Things like the moa and the great auk and the dodo and the passenger pigeon, the Carolina parakeet. You don't get sightings because they're extinct.
Yeah.
But the Tasmanian wolf isn't extinct because we still get sightings of it all the time.
How do you feel about some of this stuff I've seen a bit in the press recently about the sort of eugenical approach towards bringing dodos back to life and things like that? How do you feel about that sort of thing?
Well, if they can do it, good luck to them.
Right.
I mean, the company Colossal, I actually wrote to them and said, look, I'm a working cryptozoologist. One of the creatures you're wanting to bring back is the Tasmanian wolf. I don't think it's extinct. I've spoken to people who've seen it. I've done these expeditions. You want to finance an expedition, and whatever information I get, I'll share with you. And they said, how much would you want for this? And I said, well, to do it properly, I have a long time in the field, about £20,000 to do it properly. And I never heard from them again.
Oh.
And that, to a big company like them, that is peanut. God knows how much money they spent claiming to resurrect the dire wolf.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't. They just got ordinary grey wolves, and they tweaked a couple of their genes to give them white fur, and larger skulls, and that was it. And then they called them dire wolves. Dire wolves weren't even very closely related to wolves; they were more closely related to jackals.
Yeah, it's in this month's 14 Times, I think, isn't it? An article about that. Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean, a company like Colossal with all that money, I wish them luck. I
yeah.
hope that they're successful, but they're doing themselves no favours by making claims, false claims like they've brought back dire wolves when they haven't. I mean, good luck to them. I want them to succeed in this. But people
Yeah.
have been about cloning mammoths for years, and it's got nowhere.
Yeah, I can remember them talking about that in the sort of mid-90s when I was a
Yeah,
child. I remember them talking
yeah.
about cloning mammoths. I think it was post-Jurassic Park. There was a bit of a craze to sort of attempts to do things like that, wasn't there? But it doesn't seem to be happening very fast, I'd say. There we are. Right, before I stop recording, thank you very much for your time, Richard. And your knowledge is great and very interesting. You're the first cryptozoologist I've had on here, so thank you very
Oh,
much.
before I go,
Yeah, go on.
people listening in, the Yeti isn't white.
The Yeti isn't white.
All you see all these pictures of the Yeti being white. To go on to DeviantArt and type in Yeti, and all the paintings you get out is this white. It's not. It's brown, black, or reddish. It's not white.
What makes
It's
you say
in
that? You've seen one, or you've seen photos, or people have told you this?
all the witnesses I've spoke to that have seen a Yeti have described it as being looking like a gorilla on two legs, being black.
Ah, it's black.
I have never found any account of a white Yeti anywhere. Oddly enough, the odd Sasquatch report where they're white, but
Hmm.
not the Yeti.
How strange, considering it's not so snowy in the Rocky Mountains. It's in the
But
Himalayas.
they don't live above the snow line. There's nothing there for them
No.
to eat. That's a false notion. They live in the forests where the food
Hmm.
is. So that's going to support them.
Oh
So they
wow.
don't they don't live up. This idea we've got of something wandering around in the snows above the snow above the tree line
Hmm.
um, with white fur is totally wrong. It's an animal. It's either a great ape or a relic hominin, a relation of one of the ancestors of man. Um, very big and very powerful, a tool user, like most apes are,
Yeah.
and omnivorous, eating both meat and plants. But it lives in the forest, the ecosystem that can support it. If you get above the tree line,
Yeah.
you get no reports whatsoever because
There's
there's
not
nothing
much
there.
much nutrients up there either. That's the
Yeah,
thing,
when we
isn't
were
it?
in Tajikistan, we were also investigating reports of something called the gur, which is a wild man from Central Asia. It's
Right.
different to the Yeti, it's smaller than the Yeti. But once again, when you get to above the tree line, no reports. All the reports are within the tree line.
Oh, right.
Same with the Yeti in the Himalayas, Tibet, India. I was looking for it in India, and
Yeah.
they were all reports from the mountain jungles.
Well, it makes sense because where's it going to get anything to eat above the tree line?
Yeah,
There's no shelter, no. Yeah. Same would be same with all. I guess Yowie and Skunk Ape, but all of them. It makes sense if they're in the trees, in the woods,
yeah.
doesn't it? Yeah. Where can people find anything you've written? Obviously, you're in 14 Times now and then, and
Yeah, I write for 14 times on and off. I'm not a regular writer, but I have quite a bit of stuff publishing now.
yeah, I've read you in there. Yeah.
I've written 10 books now, but if you go onto Amazon or eBay and type in Richard Freeman, you'll get me. Anything to do with monsters or folklore or cryptids, that'll be me.
Good.
Um, and the Centre for 14 Zoology website is www.cfz.org.uk.
That's awesome. I'll put that in the info. Thank you, Richards.
Thanks for having me.